This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, what does it mean to survive war? Not just the battlefield, but captivity. Today's guest at a very special edition of Real Talk knows that answer in a way that almost none of us ever will. Shaun Pinner is a British-Ukrainian Marine who was captured while defending Ukraine against Russia's invasion. He was held as a prisoner of war. There's a technicality there that we'll learn about in a moment. For months, he was sentenced to death and ultimately released in a high-stakes exchange. Shaun's story is raw. It's unfiltered. At times, quite frankly, it's hard to hear. It's all laid out in his new book, Live, Fight, Survive. But today, you're going to hear directly from him. This is the human side of war: fear, resilience, the psychological toll, and the moments that define whether somebody breaks or makes it through. This is also the first time that Shaun is telling his story live in Canada. For many, especially in the Ukrainian community, this conversation hits very close to home. But make no mistake, this isn't just about Ukraine. This is about freedom, sacrifice, and the reality of what people are enduring right now. Well, most of us are going about our daily lives. So what actually happens when you become a prisoner of war? What does survival look like when you've lost control of almost everything? And what does Shaun want the world to understand before it's too late? That's coming up in 30 seconds. Before we get to Shaun, we want to let you know this episode of Real Talk is happening with the presenting sponsorship of RapidX Financial. You can find them online at rapidxfinancial.com. The crypto world moves fast, and your trust in an exchange cannot be a gamble. And that's why we're proud to partner with RapidX Financial, a made-in-Alberta solution backed by the same experts behind the Rapid Cash ATMs, the ones you've seen across Canada for 25 plus years. RapidX has 3 ways to trade. You can use one of their physical crypto ATMs. You can use, of course, their secure online platform. We're showing you that right now at rapidxfinancial.com. And then they do have an over-the-counter desk for discrete, larger value trades, or maybe you just want some human assistance. If you're using the website, that's rapidxfinancial.com, that secure online platform. You're going to want to note the promo code Ryan50, all one word, Ryan50. That's going to knock 50% off fees on all of your online Interac e-transfer trades. RapidX is secure, it's FinTrack registered. Crucially, it's non-custodial, meaning you always control your keys. Remember, Ryan50 the next time you're using rapidxfinancial.com. As we officially welcome Shaun Pinner to the Real Talk studio here in the historic Mercer Warehouse in downtown Edmonton, in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Welcome to Canada. It's wonderful to have you here.
I brought the weather with me.
Unbelievable. This is a story. I have never interviewed anyone in a 20-year career that has ever been a prisoner of war. And you and I are having a coffee a couple of minutes ago, and you let me know, well, technically not a prisoner of war, but you were captured and held for months. So if not a POW, what were you?
I was, under the Geneva Conventions I lived in Ukraine. I was trialed as a Nazi and a mercenary and a terrorist. The fact is, I actually never left the country I had legal status in. I was married to Ukrainian. I'd lived in Mariupol for a significant number of years before the full-scale invasion. My family are essentially Ukrainian. I was just a Russian-speaking Brit from East Ukraine. It was the first language I learned was Suzyk, which is a mixture of Russian and Ukrainian. And I'd spent a long period of time out in Ukraine before the full-scale invasion. So really, I sort of talk about now how Russia uses propaganda, justifies its narrative for invading Ukraine as someone who lived in that area for a long period of time and an English speaker, predominantly an English speaker.
So you didn't leave. I mean, we're going to rewind. I'm going to be all over the map because I have 100 questions for you. But you did not, for people that may understand this as a former British soldier, a serviceman, you did not travel from Britain to Ukraine to fight for Ukraine after Russia invaded. You had a life, you had a family, you have a family. You were in Ukraine, living there, minding your own business, and then the Russian invasion begins, and you jump to action?
I did go over initially in 2018 to help rebuild the military after its annexation of Crimea. At that point, there was no full-scale invasion. It was, Russia had gone into East Ukraine, really promoted the war in East Ukraine. And I came with an experience of 9 years in the British military. I'd learned how to fight Russians for 9 years, but predominantly I'd worked on UN operations in Bosnia in the early 90s. I did a couple of years counter-terrorism in Northern Ireland, working with covert operations platoon. So I had a background in the military, and I met my wife eventually in Mariupol, and she was a deminer working for a civilian company. So then, it's sort of 2020, I'd learned a bit of language. The whole world opened up. I needed a visa. So I'd signed a 3-year contract with the Marines, the Ukrainian Marines, thinking I could probably do in my mid-40s a 3-year contract to get my visa, give something to the country, to get something in return, a citizenship maybe. And in the last 6 months of the 3-year contract, Russia invaded.
Was it on your mind, or had you considered it as a possibility that you may be re-entering combat, or that your military service would take, would manifest the way that it did, that you'd end up actually fighting, that you could end up captured? I mean, what was the sort of temperature like in that area at that time in Mariupol and across the country?
Well, it was. If you ask a lot of Ukrainians, they were saying it would just. We always do this. This will just pass. It'll sort itself out. My wife wanted to spend $6,000 on a new kitchen in Mariupol, and I was just thinking, yeah, I'm not sure about this. My military spidey sense was tingling, saying, I think this is gonna really kick off. I don't think this is. They're going to come across the border at some point. This is far too gone. You could see the vehicles with the Zs on. Suddenly the technology changed a few weeks before the invasion. So suddenly I was in a position where I was the first foreigner. Well, not foreigner because there's Russians and Georgians, but the first Westerner to really command a position on the front lines. So I'd been there a significant number of years with my guys.
When did things start to turn, or when did you know? Describe for us your firsthand experience as the invasion happens and everything starts to go sideways.
The technology changed. I knew then. The media also moved from Mariupol to Dnipro, further away from the front lines. So I knew pretty much then that the Russians would be coming in. Like I said, the technology changed. First time in several years that they had thermal capability on the drones, and that was new. Suddenly we started seeing Russian drones flying over the top of us. And then there was artillery. They started the artillery barrages, 2 or 3 weeks before the full-scale invasion. So we knew it was definitely on. It was just we had to wait and wait and wait. And the anxiety levels sort of build up as you realise that, I'm now fighting the Russians. This is not the Taliban. This is not, ISIS. This is a formidable enemy with a really good air force, a navy, and a significant amount of troops.
What sort of experience did you have in combat before this?
I did two tours in Bosnia in the early 90s, so I'd experienced war there. It was my first real look at war and how miserable it is and how it affects civilian life. Then I worked in Northern Ireland. I was lucky enough to get an exchange on my second trip to Bosnia, where I did a survival course, a SEER course, survival, evade, resist, and escape course in Fort Lewis in Washington State, where I learned about captivity and how to resist. And so I'd had some sort of training in that before I was captured, which helped me no end through captivity.
What should the rest of the world understand about the Ukrainian people and how Ukrainians stepped up right when this invasion was unfolding? My understanding and what we saw from international reporting was that, sort of average men and women were stepping up. People were leaving their day jobs, so to speak, to fight. People with limited combat or no combat experience were all of a sudden arming themselves out of obviously a sense of necessity, probably a sense of loyalty. What can you help us understand about what it was like to see that happening?
It was very, we were defending our homes, our communities. My commander sort of said, "This is not your fight. You don't have to be if you don't want to." And I've been with you like 5 years. I've worked with you, trained with you. You got to spend a long time living with yourself if you're just gonna, go. And if I'd have seen everything happen and I'd have been at home in a safe area, I don't think I would have lived with myself too well. So essentially it was about, courage. It doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means the continuation. You carry on despite it. And generally, I think, because you're fighting for the love behind you, not the enemy in front. I'm pulling out all these cliches, but that is true. You're literally defending your city, your home, your community, which Russia wanted to destroy. I think I said just before the full-scale invasion on an media interview, I said, we'll give them a bloody nose. Well, we haven't just given them a bloody nose. We've given them a left hook, a right hook. We've got them on the ropes. And now we've given them a standing count. They've taken less than 2% of the country since 2022. So, an immense cost to the Russians, 1.3 million casualties. So, it's about continuing. Now we've sort of leveled the playing field, 3 or 4 years on, and that's where we've got to keep pushing and keep driving forward with defeating and pushing them out of Ukraine.
What is your connection to Ukraine today? Where's your home base? How's your family? Talk to us about present day.
My life's changed since my exchange. I was exchanged. I wasn't sort of given back to the Ukrainians. I was exchanged for Viktor Medvedchuk, who would have been the very person that would have replaced President Zelensky if the Russians were successful in taking Kiev. So since then, my life's sort of changed. I live in Dnipro now, support my wife, who's Ukrainian. I do a lot of work within the media, raising attention to what's going on in Ukraine, and especially the atrocities that are being carried out. Using my example, because I was tortured in captivity, I was electrocuted, I was stabbed in the leg, I was put through a trial by public opinion long before I ever got to see the legal process, where I was then given the death penalty. And I think I made international news just by the state of me. When I was captured, I was generally looking okay. But by the time I got taken to trial 2 or 3 months later, I looked like I'd been in a Japanese war camp from World War II. I lost 35 kilos. I wasn't being fed. My back went into my legs. My ribs were showing. And that really put me on international news because not really many people really knew who I was before then. So that's when... So my life's taken sort of a real turn now. I'm now a journalist. I got my journalist accreditations. I write for London Loves Business and London Business News. I write a daily blog on Ukraine's, written a book. The book's now going to be turned into a film, which is amazing. So, it's sort of moving on to new pastures from a negative experience.
Not to be glib, but do you know who's going to play you in the film?
I don't, and I couldn't say.
Who would you like to play you in the film?
Of course, Tom Hardy or something.
I was going to say Tom Hardy.
Well, his dad's
Perfect
writing
fit.
the script for it, so he's just finished that. So there's a chance he knows about it. I did ask my son and said, I fancy Tom Hardy. He said, no, Dad, he's far too good looking and far too young for you. He said, Harrison Ford for you. And I was like, what? So,
Shaun Pinner is our guest. He's the author of Live, Fight, Survive. We're going to link to that in the show notes, so you can go ahead and pick up his book. You can look for it. You can ask for it wherever you buy your books. And I want to mention this a couple times as well for our Alberta-based audience tonight. Shaun is going to be appearing at the Ukrainian Youth Unity Complex in Alberta's capital city here in Edmonton. It'll be Unbreakable Shaun Pinner Live. You can search for it on Show Pass, or you can link to it. We'll have that in our show notes on the podcast and on YouTube. That goes at 7 o'clock tonight. We're talking to you on Friday, the 24th of April. Again, that's Shaun Pinner Live in Edmonton at the Ukrainian Youth Unity Complex. Shaun joining us in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Take us back to the moment you were captured. What do you remember most vividly?
It's, as my training, it's one of the most unpredictable parts of that process. You don't know, you could have killed 2 or 3 of their friends. So if you're captured, that unpredictability is very dangerous. So, but if you get through that, then generally you stand a better chance of survival. But it was pretty scary. I had to negotiate surrender. I tried to escape Mariupol when Zelensky said, we could either negotiate surrender, or try and get back to friendly lines. I tried to get back to friendly lines, and I was captured about 2 hours outside of Mariupol on escape and evasion. And then, unfortunately, I walked into in broad daylight, which was one of the best days we'd had at the time, with drones flying over. The Russians sort of encircled me, and I'd walked into one of their positions. And then I had to negotiate my surrender. And then that was at that point, really, my time changed. I was taken by them. They fired a warning shot, and then I'd had to do that 30-meter walk to their position, which was incredibly scary. They could have just shot me there and then that was it. I was interrogated. I was then handed over from Donetsk People's Republic Forces, which is like a militia, to Russian regulars, where they took me to a building and then started to interrogate me by firstly stabbing me in the leg and then electrocuting me with a field phone, which is quite graphic, obviously, but so they did that while beating and trying to interrogate me for information about where the rest of my guys were.
I don't even know, I'm not prepared to be able to even ask the right questions on how you mentally or physically endure what you endured. I can't imagine. Even you're describing. I'm sweating listening to you talk from the comfort of my studio, wearing a blazer and dress pants. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That 30-meter walk you're describing. I mean, you're a man with a family. You've got a lot to lose. I mean, do you remember what you were thinking? Do you go into almost like a shock, like a mental shock? Like, how do you process what's happening?
Well, the training gave me a good understanding of the stages of captivity. You can't train for pain, obviously. I mean, it's excruciating. I'm not going to tell you I'm sort of, I'm not going to tell you I'm sort of, some sort of Rambo who, got through that okay. It was excruciating pain. But the book's named after what my wife said. I managed to get a call out to her last minute and say it's all over. We're surrounded. There's a 200-kilometer encirclement. We've run out of ammunition. We've run out of food. We're going to try and get out. And I thought she was going to start crying. And she just, typical Ukrainian woman, just started saying, you get home, tell the boys to do an amazing job. Don't give up. Keep surviving. Keep fighting. Don't give up. And that was why we called the book Live, Fight, Survive, because of the last thing she sort of said to me, our last conversation. I wouldn't speak to her. Oh, you got a picture up there. I wouldn't speak to her for another sort of several months to nearly a year after that, because when I was in captivity, they would only let me talk to my parents, not my wife. So in September, I managed to talk to her again.
Were there moments where you thought you might not make it out?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you go through ups and downs. It was, I was then really, you go through system-induced pressures, first of all, which is, for me, I find that wasn't as bad as self-induced pressures, where you're left in a room for 24 hours a day, climbing the walls, trying to keep your brain from going down that path.
Yes.
And there's a lot of time on your own in isolation cells. And we had a good group of people as well, which were, helped each other through. I didn't do it on my own, which was fantastic. So eventually over time, there were a few more, people that were fighting for Ukraine that weren't born in Ukraine captured. A couple of Brits, a Swede, a Moroccan. So over time, we built, we kept each other going, which was great. Gallows humour is a massive part of it. Brahim, who's a Moroccan that was captured with us, we got our first shower. We were literally hooded, some tape around our arms, beaten to this shower, thrown downstairs, thrown into walls, hit with truncheons, got 15 minutes to shower, 3 of us under this little drip, 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 drip. After 8 minutes, they came in, we were soaking wet, they put the hoods back on us, beat us up, threw us down the stairs, did exactly the same. We got into the cell and I could hear other people labouring, and I took my hood off in the cell, and Brahim's sitting there going, I think I'll skip the next shower day. Those sorts of things stay with us. That morale and that gallows humour was what, kept us going. We saw humour in some of the darkest things, and we lost. Unfortunately, Paul Urey was a British NGO who was captured with us, who was beaten up so badly he died of his injuries 2 days later in the prison. So we saw a lot of dark things. So we had to keep pushing on with humour, which was a big part of it, and the target of getting home at all costs. Getting back to your wife and family and see them.
How did you maintain your sanity, or how did you try to preserve your mental health? You talk about the solitary confinement.
I don't know if I should say it. I mean, it's like there was a couple of things. I used to do virtual tours. I'm so hungry.
Did you say you don't know if you should say it?
Oh, well, there's a story I'm going to tell you.
You should say it all.
Okay. So
it's real talk.
Things. When I was so hungry, I was doing like virtual tours around the supermarket with my head. And then after 4 weeks, you lose the taste. So if when I was first captured, I could think of a kiwi. I could taste that in the cell, because all I was eating was bits of bread every other day for 60 days. So I was losing weight. I was so hungry, but I could taste it. And after 4 weeks, it went, and I was lost. I didn't know what to do. Everything around that supermarket, I was doing virtual tours, thinking what I was going to buy when I got out, just vanished. And then I had to think about something else. And in the cell, we had a toilet, and I don't know whether any guests have seen the film Trainspotting, but it's the worst toilet in the world, and it should give you an idea. A prison toilet's probably seen a lot of asses over the time the prison's been built. So you only had to, I sort of distract my mind. So every time I was getting these dark thoughts, I would go and clean the toilet, and you only have to spend 0.2 of a second looking at that toilet, smell it, and start cleaning it with all your bad thoughts would go. You know, you would constantly go, oh, you know, and it overflow your senses. And little tricks like that, you know, we would keep each other going. I negotiated a dictionary, a couple of books, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, and they gave us The Great Gatsby, so we had a couple of books to read. But what do you do after that? The conversation runs dry, and you know, you're occasionally, you know, you get down again. So you're constantly bringing each other up through this sort of cycle, this roller coaster ride, if you know what I mean.
We're talking to Shaun Pinner, a former. Can I still? You were a prisoner of war. I know they didn't categorize you as a prisoner of war. You sure were. Let me say, you were held in Russian captivity for months. Shaun's in our feature interview here, presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West, in our live chat, powered by Park Power. The old goat just says war is ugly. Aaron wonders, why do we do this to each other? Why is the question. Emily G just says, holy moly. You must have, I mean, I would imagine the work that you're doing in your public speaking, your journalism, your blogging, your book, a message that you want to convey to the rest of the world. And I'm so curious for your thoughts on Vladimir Zelensky's leadership. I'm curious for your thoughts on Russia. I noticed something very interesting. We call it our Real Talk pre-roll, as our you know, a lot of people listening to the podcast won't hear it, but if you join our live stream on YouTube, 8:30 Mountain, 10:30 Eastern on weekdays for 5 minutes ahead of the show start, people will see highlights from past shows. And there was a lot of talk about Donald Trump, and I was watching you watch the highlights on Donald Trump, and you seem to have kind of mixed feelings, or there was something going on there with the coverage of Donald Trump. Can I ask you about it?
Yeah, I mean, part of what I talk about now is that, you know, Putin's launched one of the biggest wars in Europe since World War II. You know, he's displaced probably around sort of 6 million forced internally displaced refugees just in Ukraine. You've probably got 4 million of those that have gone abroad under some sort of scheme from other countries. He's killed sustained casualties up to 1.3 million of his own countrymen before you even talk about what he's done in Ukraine. Well, I was witness to Russia invading and Putin invaded and really, not worrying about civilians and probably killing somewhere in the region of 25,000 civilians in just Mariupol. Yet somehow Trump sucks the oxygen out of them, maintains most of the press and the media, and that for me is really irritating, because he's shielding Putin. You've now got the wavering of sanctions because of Iran. Now it's all linked together. You've got Russia supplying drones to, modified drones to Iran. You've got intelligence being shared by Russia to Iran. This is a war that's not isolated anymore. It's got bigger. It's only getting bigger. It's not getting smaller. These flashpoints are exploding, and Trump just monopolizes. He puts an AI picture up of Jesus, of him portraying himself as Jesus, and suddenly, Ukraine's off the radar. It's off the chart. So, part of it is part of what I do is to keep Ukraine in the public eye. I'm not going to get as bad as Trump, obviously, and start getting controversial. It's not who I am. But I talk with facts, and because I literally live in the country and from that area. So,
this is just amazing. I'm so grateful that you're here with us. Don't go anywhere. More questions from both myself and our audience that's watching our live stream presented by California Closets. Of course, you can punch your questions into our live chat. We'll be happy to put them in front of Shaun Pinner. Again, his book, Live, Fight, Survive, an ex-British soldier's account of courage, resistance, and defiance fighting for Ukraine against Russia. If you're listening to this episode or watching the day that we're doing it, it's the 24th of April at 7 o'clock tonight. Unbreakable, Shaun Pinner live at the Ukrainian Youth Unity Complex in Alberta's capital, in Edmonton. You can get your tickets at showpass.com or link to them in the show notes. Back with Shaun in just a moment. Right now, a message presented by the Alberta Teachers Association. When 51,000 spoke up for Alberta students, what did the government do? They suspended teachers' charter rights to collective bargaining. They made it harder for Alberta's teachers to speak out for what students need at school. They did it by invoking the notwithstanding clause, and they didn't have to. Alberta's teachers want you to know that the government had other options, and that's why the Alberta Teachers Association, the ATA, is taking the government to court to get teachers' charter rights restored. They won't stop advocating for students because it shouldn't be wrong to speak up for kids. This is a message presented by the Alberta Teachers Association. It's a big weekend at Frickin Brothers across the province, and this is something that I get particularly excited about, friends, because it's Alberta Beef Prime Rib Day coming up Saturday, April 25th. Stop by your local Frickin Brothers to celebrate one-day only specials, including Alberta Beef Prime Rib Day steaks and roasts. They've even got like balloons for the kids, other unique one-day offers, plus Alberta Beef Prime Rib Day marks some store birthdays in High Prairie and Hinton. They're celebrating 50 years. Hannah, 45 years. Barhead, 40 years. Rabbit Hill and Sundre both celebrating 5 years with Frickin Brothers in those communities. We invite you to stop by those 6 stores, enjoy a community barbecue, free coffee and cookies. That's April 25th. You can find out more at frickin.com. That's FRESON.com. And you know, 500,000, wrap your mind around that, 500,000 alumni from more than 100 countries have counted on Athabasca University to help them advance their own post-secondary goals, to take on that post-secondary journey without some of the barriers that may have been standing in the way for you. For some, it's availability. Your schedule just can't accommodate it. You're working 2 jobs. You're caring for your parents and your kids. You don't live anywhere near a university. Well, AU is designed with world-class accredited online degrees and courses so you can complete your education wherever and whenever it works for you. You can learn more about the AU Advantage on the website. That's athabascau.ca. You know that more than 94% of alumni polled say that they're satisfied with the quality of their AU education. More than 92% of AU alumni say they're in a job related to their field of study. More than 9 out of 10 graduates. Unreal. The AU Advantage is real, and you can read more about it at athabascau.ca. The remarkable Shaun Pinner, our guest here in the Real Talk studio in Mercer Warehouse in Edmonton. I appreciate your comments on global attention and the news cycle, and we often lament it. And sometimes, to be honest with you, Shaun, we're probably part of the problem because, you know, you follow the shiny story or you see what's happening, or, you know, we also acknowledge and recognize that for a lot of people, the stories that are happening in their own backyards or in provincial or federal politics also really matter. And then you find yourself in a spot where you go, gosh, if I had to talk for a minute or two on what's happening in Ukraine present day, I don't know that I could. I don't know that I'm leveled up, my understanding or my knowledge of it enough to adequately be there. And that's a tough place to be, recognizing that millions and millions of lives have been forever changed or lost in a circumstance like this. What do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about the war in Ukraine right now?
Right now, it's certainly the so-called Trump peace process and the pressure being put on Ukraine about just giving up a few kilometers, square kilometers, haggling over a few square kilometers, as Vance says. It's not a few square kilometers. Firstly, it's one of the longest front lines, since World War II. It's people's homes, lives, communities. What are you going to do with the guys, the people that are living in those areas? Are you going to just sell them out? Are you going to because the Russians are already in those occupied territories, forcibly conscripted Ukrainians to fight against their countrymen. I mean, that's against the Geneva Convention. So when Vance, the vice president, starts talking about haggling over a few square kilometers. It's political framing that needs to be addressed, and that's where I wouldn't expect people in some places in Canada to understand what's going on, or even Europe. But Putin isn't going to stop. He didn't stop in Crimea, where my wife's lost 2 homes to this war now. One in Crimea when he invaded in 2014, and then he's invaded and she lost her retirement and a home in Mariupol because she moved there after he invaded Crimea. So now, is he going to stop that? No. You ask any Ukrainian that's fighting or anybody that's living in Ukraine, Putin isn't going to stop. Even if you give him Donetsk Oblast, he's not going to stop. He wanted Kiev and he's going to keep going for it. So, part of what I do is raise people's attention to that if he does win in Ukraine, those battlefield innovations that people marvel over that are happening in Ukraine, that's got them back into back into the fight, will suddenly be Russian. There will be a NATO's door, more risk of Article 5, less time to react to ballistic missiles that he will certainly bring into to Ukraine, and also all the fighting age males in Ukraine would then be drafted into the Russian military anyway, and you'll find an even bigger problem. So part of what I do is raise people's attention to that, because, the political framing, certainly from the Trump administration, is they want a quick fix. And they're certainly aligning, and you only have to see who they endorsed in Hungary to see that there are more and more aligning with Moscow.
I want to invite you to be as critical as necessary of Canada's response to this. I'm curious about your assessment of it. I'll recognize, I'm going to reference a development. This was back in February, so this is certainly a couple of months ago. But the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, had pledged an additional $2 billion. My understanding was mostly of military equipment, including 400 armored vehicles, and introduced sanctions for Russia's shadow fleet as the war enters its 5th year. I'm referencing Murray Brewster's reporting with CBC News. The Prime Minister at that time, at the end of February, had acknowledged that additional sanctions on individuals and companies helping fuel Moscow's war efforts needed to remain. This was fascinating insight. Russian firms that specialized in AI, drone production, individual tankers that were smuggling Russian oil to the market at that time. And Canada also committed at that time to a 3-year extension of Operation Unifier. That's the Canadian military training mission that has, since 2015, helped instruct about 50,000 Ukrainian soldiers. What's your assessment of Canada's role or Canada's response to this conflict, and bigger picture, the international community? What have you seen, and what would you like to see? What do you think is appropriate?
I came last year, I think it was last year, the year before, I talked to the troops in Petawawa. I sort of, part of what I do now is talk about my captivity with specialist schools and survival schools within NATO countries, including Canada. So I've spoken at Kingston and places like that with about my experience in captivity. I know Canada's fully aware. If I told you that this was going to be off the back of an America tour, I'd just talking to the media and then going into Canada and doing exactly what I'm doing with you now, that we had to cancel the trip to America because at the time we were planning this, Trump was talking about invading Greenland and Canada. That should tell you everything of why I'm here and I'm not in America, and I had to bin that off. Because, Russia is interfering with Interpol. I don't know if I will have a red notice, but I do have a sentence, a death sentence that's recognized in Russia. So I won't know I have a red notice until I turn up in somewhere like America. I don't think the Americans are going to send me to Russia and extradite me there to serve out my sentence, but it could make my life a really big problem if suddenly I'm stopped at the American border with my visa and suddenly they won't let me in. I could have an Interpol red notice that's going to cause a lot of problems. It may stop me going to Europe, may stop me from talking to other news outlets in Europe, may stop me getting back to Ukraine. I might be confined. I don't know. And I've lost all trust in the Trump administration, which is why I'm not going to America. So I know what Canada's doing. I'm working with the Ukrainian, League of Ukrainian Canadians. I could mouthful there. So I'm literally working with those and the diaspora here to sort of promote, probably the wrong choice of words, explain what's actually going on the ground in Ukraine. So I welcome any military equipment, financial support, and support for Ukraine, because it's needed. It really is needed at ground level, and it does get there. And the reason we're in a position now that we're actually sending in more drones and more ballistics than Russia's sending in Ukraine is because of their volunteer support. I work with Ukrainians out in Ukraine at ground level, deminers through to medics. I have some close friends. My family actually live in Toronto, so I'm not exactly, I know Canada quite well because I've been to see them a few times. So, I know exactly all the support is really welcome from any country that understands what Russia is doing. And it's, like I said, launched one of the biggest wars in Europe since World War II.
It's an interesting position for Canadians. I'm not even going to. I want to be very clear that I'm not comparing at all what Canadians are thinking about right now or experiencing versus what Ukrainians are. To be very clear, but it is an interesting situation. You talk about your impression of the Americans and the reason why you won't cross the border. Canadians are processing a different relationship with the United States. Our best friend forever, up until a short time ago, and I don't think that anyone. I don't think that the average person ever believes that there would be a military invasion of the United States into Canada.
Yeah.
I don't think that the average person, being reasonable, would expect to see that. But the talk about the threats of against Canadian sovereignty, the 51st state idea, the president musing about targeting some Canadian natural resources, including water resources, Canada's claim to Arctic sovereignty, which is where Russia comes in on this, Canada's increased spending now to meet NATO targets, which in a large part will be funding Coast Guard and icebreakers and things up north, because Canada also, I don't know if I would say the first time in a long time, but Canadians have to seriously think about Russia's goals when it comes to the Arctic and when it comes to the north, and shipping routes and all sorts of mineral rights and all that sort of thing. So Canadians are having conversations and starting to think about things that we haven't thought about in a long time as well. You have firsthand experience. What does the average Canadian need to understand about Vladimir Putin?
I don't think he's in a position to look, like you said. I think he's got his hands tied with Ukraine at the moment. That's not to say where his intentions go in the future. He's certainly looking at probably, he's going to have a full mobilization. In my lifetime, I've never seen Putin under this much pressure, which you don't see in the media. His own mill bloggers, his own people. He's got such stringent laws about talking negatively about the special military operation going on in Ukraine, that you're still seeing people ripple through with criticizing the government regardless. You're seeing, since his closing down of Western social media platforms, you're seeing a lot of those guys, those influencers, suddenly their revenues are cut off. So they're now criticizing, Putin. And those are most of those don't actually live in, and they're pushing that resistance from the outside. So you're seeing a lot of internal messaging, criticizing, Putin's war. And we've all seen the refineries that are being attacked and the situation that's going on inside Russia. This is a Putin that thought he was going to invade Ukraine and take it in 3 days. 4 years later, he's got 1.3 million casualties. His economy is teetering. It's not gone to plan. There's no off-ramp for him. He's annexed more territory than he actually controls. And it doesn't look like he's actually going to advance anywhere to get that. So at the moment, I don't see this war really being settled militarily by Russia. They can't act their will at the moment on the battlefield. So you're going to see more political, more economic fracturing in Russia. If, God touch wood, if the economy falters in Russia, we could end up walking back into the occupied territories without even a shot being fired, take back Crimea. I mean, that's how bad it is at the moment. I think we've spent 4 years getting to a point where finally it's starting to hit Russia. Whether we get a peace deal, whether Russia comes to the negotiating table because it's struggling internally, then the biggest thing to take away is that the reason he's cut social media, cut things like Telegram, Google, WhatsApp, is because he wants control. He's scared. He's looking to control the masses, reduce his audience to his failures, and try and control the population, which is something you would do if you were going to do full mobilization. You want to watch everybody and see the critics and then grab them, before they cause any problems. So these are all signs that you don't see in the media. When you live next door to Russia for so long, they could be signs of depression. Could be signs of,
like a recession?
Like a recession, and how they're, a reaction to the failure that Putin's, SMO has sort of not achieved any of its targets. So we're seeing that essentially playing out now, which doesn't get, because of Trump, it just gets shielded. People don't really understand how sort of the Russia works.
Ukrainians are built different, hey? Nobody.
They are but
you think Putin thought this war was going to last 5 years?
I'd been working with him before. I absolutely said before the full-scale invasion this wouldn't be a walkover. We had no strong naval fleet. We didn't really have a strong air presence at the time, but we'd give them a bloody nose. And I still say now, potentially we're still going at a sacrifice. I don't think any of us want this war to continue. Russia, certainly Ukraine never asked for this. So it's come at a great sacrifice, but certainly, there's will to fight from Dnipro still there in Ukraine. People are even more angry since he's upsurging in what essentially, by any other words, it's terrorism. It's just hitting civilian targets. So, I don't see any change. I think, Russia aren't going to break through imminently, and I think they're in a real spot.
Raging Granny's watching us, watching our live stream presented by California Closets on YouTube. Says my coworker's from Poland. She escaped with her husband and their 5-year-old daughter when it was still under Soviet rule. She's terrified if Putin wins in Ukraine, he'll go into Poland next. You're nodding your head.
Yeah, it's everything I said. He won't stop. He'll probably go into the grey area. He'll join up with Transnistria and then probably work into Moldova. That's going to be an easy route for him. At some point, it probably will. We're talking, at the moment, it's very difficult for him to even get in through Ukraine. So, but if he does win, things like Trump pulling at NATO just helps Putin. Trump wavering sanctions on oil at sea helps Putin. It brings him $700 million a day in revenues that he, for his war chest, which essentially is going back round to support his allies like Iran. None of it, it's like a paradox. It doesn't make sense. Why would you waiver sanctions on a country that's supporting a ferry country you're fighting? And Russia are helping Iran target American service personnel. Why is this not front page news all over the globe? Yet it's just not there. It's not. He'll put a, like I said, AI picture of him pretending to be Jesus, and that just monopolizes the headlines.
You see this yellow box right here. This is called our super chat. So Matthew has donated $10 to the show, and what Matthew has done by that is he's bought you 2 cold beers, which you can grab from the fridge on the way out. You saw that. So Matthew's bought you 2 cold ones.
Thank you, Matthew.
But he also has a question. In all seriousness, he says, Shaun, thank you for putting your life on the line to help defend Ukrainians and their freedoms. How can we support soldiers to get what they need? How can our money have the most impact?
It's the most frequent question I get asked. I actually put it on my social medias yesterday. I mean, there's lots of ways you can help. Firstly, you can, don't donate to just everything with a flag. There's a lot of scammers out there. Go to recognized charities, organizations, Ukrainian charities. Do your homework. There's a lot of Russians pretending to be Ukrainians out there, so you've got to be careful of that. Write to your MP, ask them questions, push that agenda, and shares, promoting on the ground reporting from Ukrainian journalists, Ukrainian social influencers. Listen to them, repost their content. That's getting drowned out by Russian propaganda. They're the people you really want to sort of be sharing and promoting, myself, included. You want to be pushing out on the ground reporting rather than just going through the problem we've got at the moment is we've got a lot of people commentating on Ukraine that actually never been to Ukraine and sit in other countries, don't actually know what's going on. For example, we had I won't say who it was, but we had a media commentator last week tell me in my city in Dnipro that we were under incredible stress and we were stressing and the city was going to fall. Yet I lived there, and for 2 weeks, we didn't even have a drone or a ballistic missile coming in. And this was a Ukrainian saying that, but actually lived in another country, So you've got to be careful of those, those scaremongers and people looking for clicks, and get your sources on the ground from 100% true reporters, basically.
People can find you online at ShaunPinner.com. I'll note that you also have a Substack that people can check out, and folks can follow you on Instagram at Shaun Pinner UA. I saw you knew I was gonna wrap with this. Talk to us about Alberta has an incredibly vibrant Ukrainian community, incredible Ukrainian roots in Alberta. What was it like to visit Vegreville and see the world's largest Pysanka?
Taras was decided to take me on a day yesterday, so I had in the morning at the legislative building in which was quite close to where I live. So I was in the gallery there. I met the politicians, which was great, and the speaker, and I thank them for that. And then we went on a trip to the national park to see the buffalo. And then I went to the biggest kobasa sausage in that I've ever seen.
Was it? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and had some Ukrainian lunch. And then he said, "You want to go and see the biggest Easter egg in the world?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So we went up on a snowy day to get some pictures of the biggest Ukrainian Easter egg on the planet, which was quite entertaining. And then we finished off with a couple of beers in an Irish pub in town, which was quite nice. It was a good.
We've got this thing in Alberta. We love the world's biggest whatever.
Yeah.
We've got Hannah. Alberta has the world's biggest goose. We've got the world's biggest beaver. Edmonton has the world's biggest baseball bat.
Oh right.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say
although we have a tourism roundtable right after you, they may recommend other adventures than the world's biggest baseball bat, but I don't know. The world's biggest sausage is amazing.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, we had a full-on day yesterday, which was a few tourist day, which was great. So
well, I'm grateful that you were able. I would imagine that like the downtime and fresh air and everything, that's an important element of this as well for you. The heavy lifting, like I'll acknowledge this as we wrap, but for you to come in here and talk about torture and talk about captivity and talk about war. Talk about the civilian deaths, the military deaths in the hundreds of thousands, the Ukrainian military, the Russian deaths on top of that. I mean, it's just obviously you're digging deep. I would imagine that it takes a toll on your mental health.
Yeah.
How have you? I mean, it's a personal question, of course. I'll let the audience know that you cleared me to ask it.
Yeah.
But how are you doing with your mental health, and what has worked for you?
I'm quite lucky. I don't have to work at it. I was in the military for a number of years. I'd had training in resistance training. I understood Russian as well when I was captured. I'm a little older. I ran a pub for 2 years in the UK. That made me the best social profiler in the world, to be honest.
Sure.
It's like I want to know if anyone's coming to cause me trouble or spend some money. So, I've got a little wiser and a little bit more experienced than you can imagine an 18, 19-year-old going through the same processes. Some of those guys are really struggling and, they may never come back from it and still living there. One of the biggest aims that the Americans taught me, so we're not American bashing, they taught me, probably my survival was largely down to the courses they taught me. That coming back with pride was a big part. I knew I had to do that. So that involved a lot of, delaying information, don't crap on your mates, support the weaker members. So I had a set of principles while I was in captivity and I was lucky enough just to survive the 7 weeks in Mariupol when many of my friends didn't. So I don't think I've got a right to be quiet about it. I don't think I've got a right to stay silent. I think I've earned my right to air my views and speak. I'm not a Ukrainian expert, as my wife keeps telling me, but I know more than most about the region I lived in, especially about East Ukraine. And there's nothing that upsets the Russians more when I say to them that I'm a Brit Russian speaker from East Ukraine, just born in London. I was so that annoys them even more that I can talk on behalf of the realities. Those narratives that Russia projected, before the start, that we were all Nazis and he comes to save the Russian speakers. Well, he didn't save the 25,000 he murdered in Mariupol. He didn't save my wife, who's now lost her home and somebody else has moved in. And all the 6 million predominantly Russian speakers that are now displaced in Ukraine because of their invasion. So, you know, I'm able to talk about that with some conviction, and nobody can really argue that I'm making that up. So, because it's all on TV, it's all out in the media, it was all Russian propaganda that I used for my talk tonight. You know, it's all from their trial by public opinion. It's all from their footage. So, you know, it's not like I'm making it up. It's there. So.
It's honestly a huge honor to talk to you. I just want to thank you so much for joining us here in the studio. Grateful for your story and what you're able to share with people to help all of us better understand what's truly at stake here. Remarkable stuff, a remarkable guy. Shaun, thanks for this. You've been hearing from Shaun Pinner. You can hear him in person. If you're anywhere near Edmonton, make it into the Ukrainian Youth Unity Complex tonight. That's the 24th of April. You can get your tickets at showpass.com or in the show notes. And, of course, you can also check out Shaun's website. That's shaunpinner.com. Buy his book directly from his site. We'll link to that in the show notes as well. Shaun, thanks for doing this.
Thank you. No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Shaun Pinner joining us in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. In just a moment, our friends from the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, from Explore Edmonton, from Indigenous Tourism Alberta, we're going to join. This is a perfect way to head into the weekend, a perfect way to head into Friday. They've been just hammering down on Tourism Week all week, and we've got a lot to talk about. That's up next on Real Talk. Friends, if you missed our most recent episode, that was the 23rd of April, I want to recommend you check it out to hear from Carrie Williams. Carrie joined us from North Road Investment Council with some tax tips. I know a lot of you are probably going to spend at least a few minutes this weekend getting your taxes together. Carrie had some great insights on how you can keep more money in your pocket, in particular, insights on what you should do with your tax refunds. This guy is going to make us all more well off, friends. We can guarantee that, and I can tell you that if you want to connect with Carrie and Marshall and their team at North Road Investment Council, you'll find them online at northroadic.com. Successful saving can create some unexpected challenges, and that's where the financial advisors at North Road Investment Council come in. You'll also see on their homepage that feature in this month's edition of Edify. This is the Edifiers edition, Edify's annual list, and our friends at North Road are on there as 2026 trailblazers. In particular, recognized for a customized approach to wealth management, but also the work that they're doing on digital risk advisory. They're helping people lock down their online digital presence, saving families and organizations, in many cases, a ton of dough, and of course, preserving peace of mind. That's all part of the deal when you work with North Road Investment Council online at northroadic.com. Our friends at Solar by Kubi are getting set for their spring installation, and the schedule is filling fast. If you're planning on getting solar panels on your roof, you're going to want to visit kubi.ca today. That's KUBY.ca. Get a free solar quote, get their engineers working on drafting your plan, and then as soon as this snow will buzz off, they can get up there and help you start achieving your green energy goals. Nobody approaches solar in Canada quite like Kubi. They are powered by people. You can get that quote today at kubi.ca. That's KUBY.ca. And a reminder, as the Edmonton Oilers head into Game 3 of Round 1 against the Anaheim Ducks, Albertans are winning every single day with Play Alberta at playalberta.ca and on the Play Alberta app. You know, with hundreds of popular casino games to choose from, there's a game for everybody, some of them with jackpots worth millions. And, of course, there's a major casino winner every hour. Oh, and by the way, all the revenue stays right here in Alberta. If you like what you're hearing, download the Play Alberta app today to get started with casino, sports, and lottery all in one app. You've got to be 18 or over to play, of course, and when you gamble, please use your game sense. A reminder, if you see an inspirational story around you, if you see an Albertan making an impact in the community, we want to hear from you to talk at ryanjesperson.com. Thursdays here on Real Talk, Play Alberta presents Alberta Wins. Send your Alberta win to us today at talk@ryanjesperson.com. Well, this is super fun. And sometimes, you know, talk shows just take hard swerves from subject matter. Sometimes you're talking about, and we're not laughing about it, obviously, but the most serious stuff you can imagine, war, and then you get to bring in three people who are just doing amazing work in the communities around them and have big smiles blazed across their faces as we head into the weekend. And I feel like it probably is in large part due to the fact that the three of you and your teams have just wrapped up an amazing week, shining a light on the tourism industry, the tourism economy, as we officially welcome to the Real Talk studio our friend Laura Kinghorn, VP of the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. A wonderful friend of mine and a longtime colleague, Ziyah. This is so fun.
I'm so happy to see you, Ryan. You look exactly the same.
Oh,
what are you doing?
Stop it. What are you doing? Ziyah is a million things, including a former colleague of mine, but also is doing an amazing job getting the message out with Explore Edmonton and Chelsey Quirk. It is so nice to have you here with Indigenous Tourism Alberta, the CEO there. Thanks to the three of you for making time for us, and welcome to Real Talk.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, so I've been seeing, I mean, like you guys have been all over Instagram. You've been all over Tourism Week is obviously sort of inherent in the title, an opportunity for people to kind of focus on tourism, and I guess probably from your perspective with the Chamber, the tourism economy.
You got it, Ryan. So we kicked things off on Monday with a proclamation in partnership with our friends at Explore and the City of Edmonton, and we just declared the week, and then we made sure that people had the call to action of getting out there and being a tourist within our own city. And now we're topping it off today, ending the week with you, and keeping this, I guess, alive year round.
Yeah, I felt I got to be honest, and this is more a conversation for just the two of us as opposed to the whole audience. Sure. But I regretted I was unavailable for your bike pub pedal tour the other day. Okay. I know it's a huge. Tell me about it. It's a huge fail.
Thanks for acknowledging that.
I know, but I did want to acknowledge it and just come clean.
Thank you.
But you had business leaders and engaged Edmontonians literally touring their own downtown.
That's it.
We don't take the time to do that.
No, we don't. So thanks for acknowledging that. You can come to the next one. There'll be many more.
I'm out of the doghouse.
You're never in it. So our friends at Pedal Pub, they took us, some of our closest downtown partners, and we're trying to just take the action that the city needs to see so that we can actually change the safety of our city. We have this new catchphrase, which I absolutely love, from the DRC. How do we make Edmonton Canada's safest city? Not just safer. We need to make it the safest city, and it needs to be that extreme to get there. So we jumped on a Pedal Pub. We're downtown. We're waving because there is power in numbers. And also, let's just showcase that me in a 3-inch heel on a Pedal Pub, I'm downtown, and I'm proud to be there. That's right.
She survived.
Oh my! I had a great time.
And she thrived.
Yes, that's right.
See, I've always had a bit of a. I don't want to be critical. I've always had a bit of a thing with the pedal pubs. It looks like a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie.
You earn those drinks.
You earn the
and you
drinks.
don't have to pedal.
You have to pick your partners very well.
Yes. Right? Because there's got to be pedal pub etiquette. Like, is there the one person that's just not pedaling at all and they're just enjoying their beverage and everybody else?
It happens to the best of us. That's all.
Were you on the pedal pub?
Next time.
No, I have been, and I have enjoyed the scenery.
I love, Chelsey, that you're joining us this morning on this panel with Indigenous Tourism Alberta. I have noticed, like, anecdotally, the awareness, I think, around Indigenous tourism opportunities and assets are prominent in Alberta and growing, but it feels like recently more and more people are kind of waking up to it. And then on the flip side, the economic opportunities for operators and for investment from Indigenous communities, individuals, groups, really is, I mean, am I wrong? I mean, I'm seeing it looks like it's taking off.
No, you're spot on that. We know, if we're thinking internationally, we know that 1 in 3 international travelers are coming here for an Indigenous tourism experience.
Really?
We just got back from a sales mission in France and the UK, and Indigenous tourism was top of mind for every single person that we talked to. In Canada, we know that is growing as the generations get younger. People want authentic, sustainable, culturally driven travel. When people come to Canada, they want to know what Canada is all about. And Indigenous culture and Indigenous peoples are the core of that. So yeah, we're seeing the demand rise. But I want to talk two sides. There's the economic side, but there's also the side that is about revitalizing culture and making sure that communities are part of this and that they have pride and they're revitalizing language and that they're finding a career path where it didn't exist for them historically. Although I would argue and say that Indigenous people are the original storytellers and tour guides. So now we're just doing it in a more formal way.
What do you think is driving the international? I'd like to hear 1 in 3 people are seeking this. How much of that is like the world waking up to what's out there, and how much of it is like, communication and advocacy and being, you talk about you're on I don't know if you call it like a sales mission, but that's essentially what you're out there doing, right?
Yeah, I think it's all of those things. People are traveling differently and people want the truth. So when they come and there's always this Indigenous people are stoic, but Indigenous people are funny. When you come and you have an Indigenous tourism experience, you're making new friends, you're leaving a better version of yourself, you're having an experience that you've never had before. And I mean, whether it's cuisine or accommodations or on the land experiences, or just being on a nation and making friends with community members, you can do anything. It just looks a little bit different than traditional tourism. That's all.
Yeah. I love that inherent in your organization's title, Explore Edmonton. It's a mandate. It's a challenge. It encourages us to do it. But does the average Edmontonian or does the average Albertan explore their city? Do we need to be reminded?
Well, you know what, Ryan? Edmontonians are super humble, and it's great because you go and travel anywhere in Canada and they'll tell you how awesome Edmontonians are. But we're here to remind you that you need to brag about your city. There are so many cool people and places and things that are going on right here in our backyard that we need to talk about and we need to celebrate. I mean, 89 Indigenous tourism experiences alone here in Edmonton, that's power, right? Just receiving a new Michelin accolade at the Fairmont Hotel McDonald. We have,
Wait, what?
Yes, our very
When did that happen?
first Michelin key here in Edmonton.
Really?
Yeah, just a few months ago. We have, places like Mimi winning international bar and design awards. They were flown out to Dubai. They beat out places in New York City, right here in Edmonton. Colombian just recognized as one of the top coffee shops in the world. Where is it? Right here in Edmonton, right? Yeah. So we see it during the playoffs. We see the passion of the fans. But that's also the passion that lives here in our city. And if you're doing something here in Edmonton, the community rallies behind you. We support you. We love you. We make sure you succeed. So from our perspective, it's really celebrating our wins and celebrating the people, the places, the stories that make Edmonton what it is. One more stat for you, because I know you'll really love this one. Edmonton is the #1 sports city in Canada.
Okay, meaning?
In Canada, meaning we're the place to be if you're, experiencing sport, if you love sport. The venues, the largest open air stadium in Canada, Commonwealth Stadium, right here in our backyard, number 22 in the world. So that's a really, really huge win. And we were named a top 10 destination by Lonely Planet last year to visit in the world. So I think Edmonton is the best kept secret, but we need to encourage people not to be so secretive about it anymore and really, really celebrate it and appreciate what's right here for us to enjoy.
As an unofficial and unpaid correspondent for you, I'm happy to report that as of last night, the Martini program at Mimi remains best in class.
No surprise there.
I was out just doing some research before you were going to join us here today, and I'm happy to report that it is still leading the charge. There's been this call, like Edmontonians, Albertans, Canadians for that matter, but in particular, we'll talk about our home city right now. This has been a recurring theme. Like, quit being so humble. Start telling our message. Why is it that we have to work so hard to get people to celebrate the successes here?
So it's a great question, and I think Ziyah nailed that we have so much to be proud of, but we're just not talking about it. So when we look at the visitor sentiment, they come, they have a great experience, they love how they're treated, and they love what they see. They're blown away by our river valley. That is one thing that we consistently hear. I mean, do we realize it's the largest urban parkland in North America? It's 22 times the size of Central Park, but visitors recognize that, and we tend as Edmontonians to talk about the negatives. We're over it. Let's really just focus on what can we do to fix the things that maybe aren't ideal, and then let's celebrate the things that are going really well. So it really just comes down to we have to be more proud and we have to be more vocal in what we actually have to offer the world and the people who already live here. That's it.
Okay, so let me ask you this in follow-up, because you are right. We talk about the problems a lot. Yeah. Also, that's maybe just like sort of a human trend.
Definitely.
We talk about what needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I agree.
It's the pursuit toward as close to perfection as we can get. But what's one perception? I'll just recognize for people listening on the podcast, they're not seeing the font. So I'll put the question to you with the Edmonton Chamber first.
Please.
And then we'll put it to you too as well. But from a chamber perspective, what's one perception about Edmonton that you're actively trying to change?
The safety downtown. And I don't think we can actually say that it's not an issue, but I think that we can focus on the actions that need to be taken to turn that around. So the DRC just came out with that incredible policy platform. It's a call to action for both Edmontonians and the government. Here's how we make this a better place to be. And then it really comes down to the citizens going behind that rally and walking the walk to say, yes, if the action's being taken, we're going to support it and we're going to make our city a better place. And it does start with our downtown. We know that. But the tourism side of things, especially when it comes to the chamber's perspective, this is significant dollars for our city. So when we look at just last year and the visitor economy, it was $2.6 billion being invested into the hands and pockets of small businesses and large businesses alike. So this is significant. It needs to be talked about, but the effort needs to be there.
Do you see, like with Explore Edmonton and the intel that you have on visitor investment, or even sort of the what do you call it, staycation investment, people that are investing locally? Sure. Do you see when Laura identifies the top, and I don't know if you say a misconception, but the top issue that you'd like to see addressed with downtown safety in particular, is that something that actively is interfering or maybe hampering business or stopping investment? In other words, do you have data or insight that would suggest if the messaging or if the actual patrolling, if the numbers, the crime stats were different, the tourism economy or investment in tourism would also be different?
Well, what we're seeing, Ryan, is Edmontonians are resilient. They congregate no matter what, and they will come out and support. Like, look at it outside. The Ice District tonight is going to be packed. Nothing is going to stop us from enjoying our city and celebrating our city. So we're seeing the passion come through really from Edmontonians, and we're actually seeing people, support more. If somebody is struggling in Edmonton, the community will come out and support them. They will line up at their door for a coffee. They will line up at their door for a meal. We're seeing that, it's really building momentum within our communities and our city, to go out and support and to make downtown vibrant and lively and enjoyable.
How about this from Ms. KD, who's watching our live stream presented by California Closets. By the way, you three, you can get a free consultation today at californiaclosets.ca. I've seen your wardrobe. We got to get you a California closet, Laura. We got to do it. Ms. KD says, my niece is a barista in Edmonton. She's won competitions. She even went to a global competition, says it's crazy. Anyway, she's recommending, apparently her niece makes a cold brew with tonic. Have you guys ever heard of this?
That sounds
I can get behind that. Yeah.
That sounds kind of
and there's so many stories out there, right? There's so many incredible people painting NHL masks in their basements, or programming Star Wars video games, or there's a huge movie production company here in our city that does Hallmark movies, your favorite Christmas movies, made right here in Edmonton, right? So it's just really speaking up about that, talking about the good, living in the good, and supporting the good.
Well, I think those stories are essential to tourism. That's what people want. They want to hear stories. They want to know about the place where they're visiting.
We had let me say this, and trust me, I'm going to get focused in my question here, but an interview yesterday with Mo Amir out of Vancouver, and he was talking about DRIPA and talking about unceded territory in BC and what have you, and the impact that it's having, and David Eby's woes, the premier. I won't drag you into the politics of this, but I'm curious, the numbers show, and Angus Reid polling shows that experience and what British Columbians are witnessing is actually having, I would say, a negative impact on public sentiment around the need for reconciliation. You're nodding your head. I'm sure that this has been on your radar, and I'd be curious to hear from you the role that you think that tourism and opportunity around tourism in particular for Indigenous people, what role that plays in reconciliation. We hear of economic reconciliation often.
All the time. And I think it's that shift beyond the word reconciliation. It's the actual actions that you're doing, and tourism is a tangible way that you can support reconciliation. You are supporting Indigenous entrepreneurs, Indigenous business. You are learning. It's changing. It's changing you as you go through it. So it is a concrete way that you are taking the action to support reconciliation, as opposed to just having a document that sits on your shelf. I think, and Alberta's really well poised in this area. Indigenous tourism is a key pillar of our provincial tourism strategy. That doesn't happen in other places. So our province has recognized that this is the path forward, and tourism is a major pillar of that, which gives us leverage to build.
Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think the Alberta government has woken up to that or has bought into that when other provinces may not have? Is that a result of your team's advocacy?
Oh, I mean, advocacy is a huge piece of that, of course. Our counterparts in Manitoba, they've started to make that transition as well, which is fantastic to see. It's interesting in the tourism space where the competition looks different. We're not competing against other people. For Indigenous people, if we all succeed, that's what success looks like. So it's really collaborative. And our provincial government sees that that the business case is made. People want this, so let's support the entrepreneurs to actually do it. And we saw this week a great piece of Tourism Week. Our partners at Prairies Can supported a variety of Indigenous tourism operators who are members of ours to build their businesses and grow and expand. And people get it; they see it. This is the path. Big investments.
Especially here in Edmonton, right?
Yes.
That's the beauty of this city.
Well, in and around Edmonton, we've got the core urban Indigenous people who have businesses here, and then building the foundation around Edmonton. So people are going to stay longer. They're going to take day trips. They're going to spend a night and then come back. So it's a whole ecosystem.
Okay, so let's get real about something, though, too, because you guys are here championing Edmonton. You're cheerleading around Edmonton. That's your jobs. And I know that you're not just doing it because you're paid to do it.
It lives in our hearts.
I know that it does live in your
That's
hearts.
why we have these jobs.
You and I've known you for 20 years.
Yeah,
I know it's in
you're
your
a
heart. I know
pioneer.
you're a community champion for sure, but you'll hear the cynics. And the cynics will say, and like my friends in Calgary are quick to point out, every city has a river valley, you guys. And I know that we can say, well, not every. I know, and Laura's just like getting ready here, but I had to.
Do they have a hockey team?
I had
out
to.
there in Calgary?
I had to infuse some controversy here. But the idea being that you guys, I mean, I understand, and I will play the cynic here, that I understand the importance of this messaging, but people will say, there's nothing special about Edmontonians or Edmonton. This is a branding thing. You guys are just trying to sort of apply this idea around Edmonton or Edmontonians that you could use to describe people in any Canadian city. What is the counter argument?
If as Edmontonians we are not going to be our own biggest fans, then I don't know what to say. We are going to care the most about our city because we live here and we care about the future of our city. So I think they're blatantly wrong. We are very proud of our downtown. We are very proud of the work we're doing. We have the largest mall in North America still. We still do. We don't talk enough about it, but any one of those isolated examples is not going to make people understand how great our city is. We have to beat the drum. We've got to keep going with it, and we have to keep talking about all the elements, not them in isolation.
Hang on, you're talking about West Edmonton Mall?
I actually am.
Do you feel like it's falling off the radar?
I worked in that mall.
It's packed every time I go there.
No, I think people are forgetting about it. I think that,
Really?
that there is some unfortunate vacancies in there that I want to not see. But when it was opened in the 80s, it was the greatest indoor show on earth because they literally said there was nowhere else you'd rather be indoors than Edmonton, Alberta. Well, the times have changed. We are now, all season city, and that's just one element of it. But we have some of the most incredible first stores in Canada within that mall because this is the place where people are going to show up and shop. Yes, we also have an incredible tax rate compared to our domestic partners within Canada, but this is where people come. And having worked in retail forever, the seasonality of tourism is dependent to make money for these sales associates and these people in hospitality. I want to add, Ryan, as well. People don't always realize that they are part of the tourism industry, but if you serve a guest visiting our city, guess what? You're part of the tourism industry.
Yeah. You are we allowed to talk about who you've worked for before and things
of
like
course.
that? Because I think
I'm wearing pearls over a jersey,
open
subtle.
The audience would love to hear it. They would love you. You worked at Tiffany for a long time in a senior role.
Yeah.
And you were at LV before that?
So I worked at
Louis Vuitton
when we had our whole rent-through.
So and this is all getting to a question. We're not just running through your CV, but when I could see your face, and the podcast listeners, I bet, will be able to hear you smiling when you talk about the first, what did you say, the first of a brand in Canada? So in other words, the first store of this, that, or the other, of these these global brands. Why is that important?
It's really important. I can actually tell you a really fun story I don't think I've ever told. So Tiffany was not the first store in Canada, but I was very proud when they chose to open a store within Edmonton, and I was the director there for the better part of 10 years. As I call it, my 30s, I was there. But Simon's, even outside of Quebec, it was the first store in Canada to open within West Edmonton Mall. It's a big deal. But here's a story I'll tell you. And being an advocate for our city and a champion for our city. So before we had a Gucci within Edmonton, I was being recruited to go and work for Gucci in Toronto. And I said, I'll take the meeting as long as I'm with the decision maker. So I took the meeting, and all I talked about was how great our city is and why they should open a store here. And I had no intention of taking that job, but I don't waste a moment with the person who can actually make a decision. And look at us now. We've got Gucci, we've got Yves Saint Laurent, we've got some incredible Balenciaga. The whole team's here. But if we keep talking that way, people will listen.
And Ryan, you and I have built careers on telling the wonderful stories here in Edmonton.
It's so true.
It's literally our livelihood, right? So that's, I think, a strong testament to the power of the people in our city too, is we get to share those stories all day, every day. And you've been doing it for a lot longer than I have, but it's given us purpose. It's given
I'm not
us
that old, Ziyah.
You're just a vet in the game, you know, broadcasting royalty.
Yeah.
But like, you know what I mean? Like it's given us our livelihood. It's given us, you know, reason to wake up every day and to tell the stories that we tell.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about myself for a very brief second, but I would also say about Edmonton, and I would apply this to Alberta, is that this show wouldn't exist. I mean, what we're doing here, just for a moment of self-reflection, is innovative and very unique, and there's not a lot of people in Canada that are doing what we do, which is an independent daily live stream. The province's talk show of record, if I may humbly suggest.
You can.
And we've got the receipts for it.
That's
But
right.
this show would not exist without an incredibly passionate audience. I'm going to check in with them in a second. We've got some questions for you guys.
Right.
But also, our sponsorship base is remarkable because this is a province, and certainly the Metro Edmonton region, that believes in entrepreneurs and that rewards entrepreneurs and that partners with entrepreneurs.
They rally.
I'll never forget, and I never tell this story, at least not publicly, but when I was fired, about a week after I was fired from terrestrial radio, I'm not sure if you guys heard, but
Kept secret.
this group of business leaders, without my request or my knowledge, rallied together, set a time. It was during COVID, so we unfortunately did it via Zoom.
Yeah.
In person would have been cooler. But we had a 2-hour Zoom call, and I'm talking like names that everybody would recognize. It was a private and personal experience for me, so I won't say who was there, but top shelf A-list VIP business leaders, and showed up and just to support me and to talk me through it and to pick my brain and to share their thoughts, not like they knew everything, but just in an encouraging sense.
That's
of saying,
the rally.
it was like,
Yeah.
gosh, it would be a shame if you just went and like whatever, just sort of like left the industry, left it all on the table, let this be the end of the story. And they said, now how can we support you in this? Only one of the people in that conversation ended up being a sponsor of the show, but every single one of them contributed incredibly valuable. And I'll never forget that, because
and see, that gives us the goosebumps.
well,
Like,
and it's
just
true,
hearing your story gives me the
and
chills.
I'm so grateful for it. And so I know this to be a community that lifts people up, that supports people, that wants to see endeavors succeed. I mean, you must see this all the time when you with Indigenous tourism opportunities. There's a lot of people probably entering the space with little to no experience in tourism, but the deep-seated knowledge and understanding that they have an incredible story or an experience to share.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we come in on the back end. Our entrepreneurs and the experiences, that's their bread and butter. They're telling stories, they are hosting people, they're doing the magic. We're in the back end helping them do this stuff that no one really wants to do. The logistics, the planning, the business planning, the how to get your business going. I do just want to go back to one thing that you said, like we've got beautiful river valleys. Other places have beautiful river valleys. Alberta has beautiful mountainscapes. Other places do. When we think, and we say this all the time, especially in international audiences, the Indigenous culture that lives here, the people who are here, the Edmontonians, the Albertans, and the Indigenous story only lives here. That is something so unique that you cannot get that anywhere else. And that's why people come here. And that's why they come back and they tell their friends and family. And then people want to invest. It's a whole domino effect. It's quite beautiful.
Tony's watching our live stream, and she checks in our chat. She wonders, I mean, this may not directly have anything to do with tourism, but I think it kind of sort of does. She says, I'd love to hear from the panel what they think should be done with City Centre Mall. She says it should be a focal point for downtown, right next to the Ice District. What's your wish list, Laura? Your face just lit up. You're laughing.
There's a lot of things we could do. I'm going to take a Laura hat to this, not necessily a chamber
This
hat
is not
to
the
this.
chamber's official position.
Our position is always what's good for our downtown, what's good for business, what's good for long-term,
Yes.
the economics of our city. I would love to see a place where we can actually get back to having a department store. We really don't have a department store outside of Simon's right now, and do it in a new and exciting way. Maybe our friends at California Closets can help me with this. I want concessions. I want small, buildable, almost like the pop-up shops of a downtown department store. So it's not a huge investment. The risk is very low. You can come in, you can come out. It's modular. So I've really thought this through, guys. But you can come in and you can take a chance and really give Edmontonians the opportunity to prove that we do have a market base here.
Take a chance. I love that.
Take a chance.
Yeah. I mean, there's such huge potential there. The footprint is...
Just don't make it super risky, and then people will...
Yeah.
And I'd like to see some arts in there, right? We see the Banksy
Absolutely.
exhibit take over, or, roaming sort of artistic shows like that, immersive experiences, some of that I think would do really, really well
It has
within
the
that.
space.
Within that.
For our members, infrastructure is a major problem. Having a place to actually go and program and greet people and showcase their whatever their experience is. So the infrastructure would lend itself quite well.
Wouldn't that be cool? You've done a nice job, by the way, with your arts storytelling. We actually played a video. Don't worry, we gave you credit.
Oh, thank you, Ryan.
But
I know where you live.
You remember talking to Darren Jordan from Five Artists One Love during Black History Month?
And how cool is that?
They had that
right?
really neat installation, that exhibit in the what do they call it, the lobby or whatever at City Hall.
Yes.
Yeah,
Why can't I think of what they call that? You know what I mean? The main area.
That's right. And it's like, it's just those kinds of experiences, right? I was recently in Vegas, got to see the Sphere, super cool, immersive. But I'm like, you know what? We have that in City Hall.
Yeah.
Like that's something that lives right here in Edmonton. There's the talent is here, the tech is here, the artists are here, the community is here, and those stories that were told as part of Black History Month will resonate forever just because of that experience that was created, and curated for our city.
Steph M is longing for the days of the Bay at City Center Mall.
Same.
Have people moved on from what's the definition of a department store? Like we know it's like Bay, Eaton's, like are those all
You sell multi-department within the department. So
Okay.
you usually have cosmetics, you have women's, men's, children, and often home goods.
And does that model not work anymore with like what are we seeing generally speaking?
So they became, I would say they really, really, really worked because obviously we didn't have online opportunities.
Yes.
And then if you pivoted, I think well enough to become almost a showroom. But if you're a showroom where you're still ordering something online to ship to someone's house, people have then transitioned to let's just shop online.
Yeah.
I miss a brick and mortar experience of a department store. I do.
Yes.
But I miss it the most when it comes to celebratory occasions. I can buy my things here and there as I pop in and out. But for a company also to invest in having full size runs of gowns or, suiting, it's a huge investment, and
Yes.
the marketplace has shifted.
I remember doing an interview. I was so annoyed on behalf of these two risk takers. If you remember, Randall and Darcy
Do I ever.
used to own Call the Kettle Black.
Adore those
which
gentlemen.
was this amazing, what would you call it?
Institution.
It was an institution in central West Edmonton of like a kitchen goods shop, but just
High
like
Street,
just
yeah.
the best. Like you wanted the best knife, you wanted the best blender, you wanted the best
Yes.
whatever. You can actually, it sort of pains me a little bit every day walking in here to see the Neon Sign Museum, and there's
There they are.
thank goodness the sign is preserved, but I would rather see it over the shop. But anyway, they were kind enough to do an interview with me when they closed the doors to their shop, and I know it was a painful thing for them to talk about, but here's why I was annoyed. They told me that the trend was that people would come into their shop to look at the stuff and to hold it and get a sense of it and then they would leave the shop and go order it online.
Yes.
And I just couldn't even wrap my mind around
That
it.
is a consumer problem. That really is, and I also would layer in that they had difficulties in that entire area when it comes to construction, but that's not for this show today.
Sure, that's not for the show. The chamber doesn't want to pick a fight with the city over the construction schedule.
We are really happy to be capping off Tourism Week. We are really happy.
Tourism Week, Ryan Jespo.
You guys are like, will you please quit asking us about City Center Mall and the bridge
No, you can ask us
construction?
anything.
We've got ideas for days.
right.
How has your book on Ziyah, what you're doing in the storytelling? You're doing an amazing job with it with Explore Edmonton. But how has that
Yes.
playbook changed post pandemic when it comes to attracting visitors? Like there's a lot of people's habits have changed. Almost their entire mindsets have changed post pandemic. So how do you address that?
Well, I think a lot of people, as we've seen in the media world, mainstream media is kind of fading away. And what do? We lay in bed at night and we're scrolling through our phones. That's how we ingest. That's how we hear about things. That's how we communicate. That's how the newer generations, my kids are trying to get me on the TikTok. And I just recently learned that that's not cool anymore,
TikTok's not cool anymore?
Apparently it's a thing of the past,
Okay,
Ryan. So
all right.
I'm sure your
Wow.
kids will keep you up to speed too. But, just telling stories in a way that's digestible, that's easy to consume, that, is vulnerable and relatable to Edmontonians, I think has been really, really powerful. And like we've talked about, there's no shortage of content. And I think that even, post-pandemic, civic pride is something that never goes away. Civic pride lives within us. And, wanting to talk greatly about our city is we're just giving people the ammo to go out there and talk the talk about how Edmonton's a great place.
Yeah, I love that. Noob, he just wants more uncomfortable questions, which,
Bring it
I'm
on.
here for it. $5 in the super chat, so he's buying you all a beer. Or a Prosecco. We could do Prosecco.
Love today.
Noob says, what are the roundtable's ideas or rumblings they may hear? He wants the inside scoop of uses for the Rossdale power plant. He says, could we have Edmonton's Granville Island. There's so much potential with the location. I understand there's a lot of barriers. I've heard it cited as or referenced as an incredible potential opportunity for Indigenous tourism in Edmonton.
Yes, I don't think it happens without Indigenous tourism being part of it.
It must be.
It must be.
But that should be what it is.
Yes, yeah, I agree. And we've started having some of those conversations. I know they're happening too. Indigenous people will be included in that process, and tourism will be a pillar, and that's just the way that it's going to be.
Yeah. That's
a
was
confident note, but I believe it.
Well, you're 100% correct, and I would almost suspect that you would have 90 to 100% agreement from the public on that. I mean, it strikes me as an incredible opportunity. I recognize you're the CEO of a major organization with Indigenous Tourism Alberta, so you may not want to give us the hot scoop here, but we're always looking for this. We're looking for the inside track on it. Would you be willing to share maybe even an idea or two that you may have, or some ideas that you've heard about how that could be repurposed? I mean, do you have a vision on what that space could look like in 5 or 10 years from now?
I mean, I could say with my hat on what I would think, but as a membership-based organization.
Let's say with your hat on.
Oh, I think you're going to have cuisine. There's going to be food. There's going to be art. There's going to be programming.
Yeah.
It's going to be all of that. I think that's what and cafes. I mean, food brings people together. Well, it brings me to the table always.
I am always here for the food.
Yes. So the music, it's all of it. It's all of those elements. I think where we're going to see the magic is where we invite all of the community, the Indigenous community, to come in and share their voices of what they see, because they could have things that go far beyond that as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited for the opportunity. It just has to be done right from the beginning.
Absolutely, 100%.
This is topical for the Chamber as well, and I think it's just an incredibly untapped resource. I'd love to see the Whiskey Trail just have an opportunity down there. I mean, there's a lot happening in our province that just has the opportunity to explode if we get the base, I guess, set up in a really, I agree with Chelsey, a really intentional way for long term. And I think it's absolutely something that we can change. I hope it doesn't take 10 years. I'll add that part. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We're diligent.
Yeah, I mean, as I guess I'm just trying to point out, it feels like time flies. And sometimes you look at something, you go, gosh, like, why is this taking so long? We don't understand it. And I think for me at my limited level of understanding as a civilian, I've been driving past that area, mm-hmm. and you have these nights. I have no invested interest in this. They're not an advertiser, but I will tell people every day to go buy Riverhawks baseball tickets, because it is like, you know what? Can I tell you, we were feeling like I had my big boy pants on, and I was feeling Relay's doing pretty good, and so I said Relay's going to get a corporate suite for the Riverhawks. No, they're sold out. They've been sold. I called them. I called my buddy Steve.
Swifty night?
I called Steve Hogle. No, I said for the whole season, and he goes and he
not
just
available.
chuckles. He says unavailable, and I honestly I said that's wonderful.
Ryan, can you work on the Elks then, because they have some suites available and they'd love to sell one to you.
Yeah, well there you go, and we're looking for those experiences, but the point being in the Riverhawks Stadium and looking at those Edmonton nights, and there's nothing like it, and it's like 10:30 at night, and the sun's just starting to set, and then you see that power plant outline there, and it's just, I can only imagine. I think Noob nails it when he describes it as Edmonton's Granville Island, or the Forks in Winnipeg. I mean, they've done an amazing job with the Forks. Hey, listen, we'll use this as sort of just a congratulations to your 3 organizations and others that just hit it out of the park on Tourism Week. I know that the Edmonton Chamber has an event coming up, and I was actually saw it on the Instagram account. People can follow the Chamber on is Instagram still cool, Ziyah?
I think so. I think the stories is where it's at.
I think it's okay, so that's good.
One platform we can use.
If you follow Edmonton Chamber on Instagram, you'll see that Federal Minister Eleanor Olszewski is going to be she's stepping into the spotlight on May 1st for you.
She is. That's right. So please, look at our website. We have a lot of events actually, and actually one more being launched today. I can't even speak to yet, but we're the first phone call often for our ministers coming in and wanting to have a conversation, and we're really grateful for that, and we're not going to miss an opportunity.
That's great. And I'll also say that you guys are doing a great job of I know that you're a nonpartisan organization, and credit. I know that you had a sit down with Nahad Nenshi recently. Mm-hmm. You've had the finance minister in following the budget, that sort of a thing. I mean, that's the resources that people need, and obviously a benefit of membership to the Chamber. We profess our love for the Chamber all the time here on the show. Call to action or a final thought for this audience. It's always how we like to wrap our Friday roundtable. Ziyah, give us something to think about as we make our way into the weekend.
Love your city. Go out there, show up, support, speak highly of us, and really, brag Brag about the cool stuff you're doing. Tell people. People need to know. There's no other way that they're going to find out. I mean, we're here as funnels and vessels to share that, but it starts with you, and it starts with you, celebrating it and sharing your stories. So
I love that. Chelsey?
Yeah, I'll build off that. You don't have to be a tourist to do tourist attractions to take part. We have tons of great Indigenous tourism opportunities right here in and around Edmonton. So take part in them. Bring your family. Learn something. Share it with someone else. Have fun.
Love that. Last word to you, my friend.
Well, thank you. So as we cap off Tourism Week, I want to make sure that this does not end with this week. I want to hear positive experiences. I want people going to a restaurant. I want you getting your friends out there, check out something you haven't done in a while, and then talk about it. And I want to hear the positive experiences. They need to be shared.
Perfect. That is Laura Kinghorn with the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, joined by Chelsey Quirk, CEO, Indigenous Tourism Alberta, and Ziyah Karmali from Explore Edmonton. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for sitting on the roundtable. So nice to connect with you again. I see you on screen all the time. I never see you in person.
Likewise. Are you even real?
I was going to start telling the Coachella hologram story, but we don't have time. Thanks to you three.
Have a good weekend.
Real Talkers, I'll let you know that this conversation was presented by our friends at the Edmonton Chamber, and you can check out edmontonchamber.com for more on the benefits of membership. Relay, our Real Talk's parent company, is a proud Edmonton Chamber member, and it has proven to be our business's most valuable investment. Strengthen your business and support our community with an Edmonton Chamber membership. Online, you can also check out their chamber events coming up, and that does include the Federal Spring Economic Statement Luncheon with Minister Eleanor Olszewski. She's the MP out of Edmonton Centre, and of course is playing a significant role in Mark Carney's cabinet. That's coming up on Friday, May 1st. A week after that, their Chamber After Hours event. More details at edmontonchamber.com. John Hicks, the technical director of this show, has been flying the plane and doing an admirable job. Also, both of us in action last night with our friends at Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. And before we head hot into the Flamethrower, I wanted to give those guys a big shout out. They've done an absolutely unbelievable job with their dealership. What do you call it? I mean, just a renovation doesn't seem to me to adequately describe it, but had an absolute blast last night out at Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. It was the first time this year, I think first time in a long time that I've seen the Mercedes star by way of an ice sculpture, which is one of the coolest things that I've ever seen, and awesome to have you out there spinning tunes too. So just a big shout out to our friends there.
Yeah, they
did a beautiful job.
Our friend Joelle from Joy by Joelle, shout out, had set up an amazing event. There's acrobats hanging from the ceiling, pouring people's champagne upside down.
Pouring upside down champagne.
I was worried about their blood pressure. I was like, they're upside down for like 2 hours.
Well, and I was trying to think of, can you imagine the core strength that you need?
Oh, yeah.
So they're like suspended, what they're called silks, right?
Yeah.
They're suspended by
these
silks.
It's like a cocoon or whatever. But
yeah,
they're definitely professionals. I had a friend who used to do it. She retired from doing it, but it takes a lot of strength, your whole body, to keep, because when they're not pouring the champagne, they're like doing all these acrobatic kind of motions, and they're like a butterfly in a cocoon, kind of wrapped in the whole thing was just incredible.
Check it out. Carrie, my wife, at Carrie Skelton on Instagram, she posted this story last night, so you can see it. There's the ice sculpture. I was happy to say a few words on behalf of the team there at Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Nice to see former Mayor Stephen Mandel in there.
Oh, he's
a beauty.
He's an early joiner and an early leaver.
Here's the an early joiner.
There's me.
There's Johnny Infamous spinning, and there we are at Olia after. But just a beautiful night.
It was incredible.
And beautifully done by you as well.
I loved it. And everyone who works at Mercedes-Benz in general, but especially that location and now how beautiful it is, they're just like the friendliest folks ever. And to anyone who thinks like, they've helped us out. To anyone who thinks like a Mercedes-Benz is out of, like, I could never.
Right.
Like, go in and talk to them. These guys and gals are there to make, like, not everyone can afford a luxury vehicle or a luxury life, but they're trying to make it work for everyone they can. And they're some of the nicest staff I've ever met. Like, you'd think you go to I don't want to say pretentious, but you go to a Mercedes-Benz party, it's a bunch of hoity-toys. I was like, these are some of the most down-to-earth people I've been hanging with tonight. And I do events and DJ everywhere over the city every weekend, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, this is such a chill vibe.
Yeah.
The president was just an amazing guy. He's
Scott Held,
just incredible. And it was a beautiful evening. And I think, I'll just leave this as a joke at the end, I think they're smart when they throw these parties, because the window is 2 hours. Like, they're not like throwing a 6 hour. They're like 2 hours. Here we go. Get out kind of thing.
I think that's cost control.
The people in there wanted, when I was leaving, they wanted to stay till midnight.
Oh, yes,
even
they
though
did.
It was Thursday.
Yes, they did. Well, and they'd also transformed the dealership to look like a New York City nightclub, so it looked amazing.
It was beautiful. Like the place, even though they had it a bit done up last night, I was just walking around and looking at some of the craftsmanship, some of the painting. It's so top notch. You think when you go into a dealership that, there's dings on the wall from them moving cars and whatever. Mostly the time it's plain. It's just white walls, whatever. Yeah. Guys, go down there. Even if you're not going to buy a car, just walk in there and walk around.
Well, you may say,
incredible.
and people may say, like, oh, what's so special about a car dealership? It's a car dealership. So number one, Mercedes-Benz, one of the biggest brands in the world, right? The company designs the dealerships, and then the company lets you know when your reno is happening, and then this is how it works. And so you've got they have a global standard. So like the showroom here in Edmonton, which I learned last night, Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West is the northernmost Mercedes dealership in North America. How cool is that?
That's cool.
And it's the 7th dealership in Canada to have this new design standard applied. It was a huge investment locally for the team there, but it really is an experience. You go in, it's the most beautiful auto showroom in, I'm going to say, in Alberta, and then obviously the cars in there. Some of them are wild.
The whole experience going in there, and if you're going to purchase a vehicle, just go. Like even Erin says right here, she says, we own a Mercedes-Benz from Edmonton West, cheaper than a Toyota. There are models for every, no matter what you take home in a year. And I went in there last night, and but of course, it's just awesome walking in there and seeing the ones that the matte black G-Wagon that it's probably Post Malone can only afford, but it's just the designs are just incredible. And I think Mercedes-Benz is still one of the safest vehicles you can own. Think about they're still made from quality products. Everything's freaking plastic nowadays. They're not sturdy, whatever, but they're still one of the safest, most reliable vehicles on earth, and they're just incredible.
You know what I always feel with a vehicle, and this is the case with the Mercedes I'm driving now, and also with our 65 Cadillac. You can tell a lot about a car by what the experience is like closing the door.
Yes.
And when you close the door,
if your dash features shake or whatever,
right? Or if it just kind of bang, it's like a hollow bang versus a. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. The door closing on a car
100%.
says so much about the car. Anyway, we didn't plan this. We didn't script it. We're really proud to partner with Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. And we just wanted to celebrate their success. They've done a beautiful job, and congratulations to them. Johnny, we're going to wrap up because we got to roll. I'm excited, very excited and honored.
It's game day.
It's game day number
Let's
one
go.
for the Oilers. And also, the Alzheimer's Pro-Am hockey tournament kicks off in 2 hours.
Amazing.
I'm so proud to be skating with Team Cali Crush. That's the California Closets team, captained by Cameron Johnson from California Closets. Cameron is also serving as chair of the entire tournament this year. I haven't seen the fundraising total yet, but I do know that we are going to raise more than $1 million for Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. And Real Talkers, this is my love letter to you for today. I want to thank every single one of you that donated to my personal fundraising. We had a couple of Edmonton Oilers tickets up for grabs, and congratulations to our winner. You know the winner. Some people thought it was cooked. Some people thought the contest was cooked because Super Chat Ken won the Oilers tickets. That was to the Tampa game back in March. My son Wyatt did the draw. The draw was on video. It was all legit, but a big shout out to everybody that donated to the cause, and I hope to make you proud this weekend. We don't know who we're going to draft yet. Our Cali Crush, we're the third top fundraising team, Johnny, out of I think about 20 teams. So we'll be picking third in the draft. I've got my fingers crossed for Ray Bork. I don't know if we're going to get Ray Bork, but I think that'd be pretty unbelievable to be skating with one of the greatest D-men of all time. That'd be special, so I'll let you know.
That'd be incredible.
If it's Raymond Bork, we'll have to be on our best behavior. If we wind up with Matthew Barnaby again, all bets are off. All bets
you
are
got
off.
to slight Barnaby?
I love Barnaby.
I know.
No, I love Matthew
if we
Barnaby.
Get stuck with Barnaby,
I'm just going to say, if Barnaby gets stuck with us, he better be ready.
I see.
I said to my buddy says to me, last year, who'd you have? I said, we had Matt Barnaby. He goes, oh my God. And then my buddy goes, did he have his gold teeth in? I was like, no, he regrettably did not have the gold teeth.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a great night down in Ice District too. I just wanted to add before we go, just the panel we just had, if you missed it, if you're just tuning in now, or if some people come late and they scan back, listen to it, because those are three people who love Edmonton. They've been, in Edmonton their whole lives. They're inserted in the culture, and downtown is getting this bad rap right now, but we talked about it a couple shows ago, how it's just an incredible place, especially around playoffs. It's not as dangerous as these. I was gonna say the account, but I hate it that these accounts make it.
I know what you're thinking.
It's just that you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's an incredible place to live.
I've lived of fans fighting each other, but you got to keep in mind, two fans.
Sports, man.
Well, and two fans fight each other. There's a lot of alcohol involved, but there's 20,000 people in the downtown.
Sports riots are the most common riots, and violence happens. And when there's a million people rustling around the city watching the game, of course, like 5 or 6 scuffles are going to happen. But what I wanted to say is just Edmonton's an incredible city. I've lived in Toronto. I've lived in Vancouver, right downtown in both cities. I've been to Montreal. I'm from the States. I left Edmonton, came back because I love this city and I saw how it was growing. And it is an incredible place. And the things Ziyah especially was saying, I was like, these are the things no one talks about. But like Mimi destroying bars in New York with their cocktails, and just the incredibleness of downtown and the culture and the music and the restaurants that are popping up, and was it Fairmont McDonald getting Michelin rating?
I didn't know that, by the way. How do I not know that?
These are the things that people don't talk about when they're like, oh, the mall is boring or whatever now. Like Edmonton is continuing to grow and continuing to outdo itself. And as more people come here and people are like, oh, the city's getting too big, it's only going to get better, people. It's only going to draw business, investment, and more culture and more, restaurants and all these things that we love and that we have not had in Edmonton for so long. So as you tend to get like, oh, Edmonton's not this kitschy small town vibe anymore, but it's going to have this large international city feel. And when you go downtown, you'll be able to have that. You'll still be able to go 20 minutes every side of the city and get the small town vibe in the suburbs. But the downtown is just, we got to invest. Come downtown, especially during the playoffs, spend your money, support local.
Yeah. Tony says the people that bitch and moan about Edmonton's downtown are the same people that won't come and support local businesses. That from Tony. The more people, the better. I would say that. And Ken K in our chat goes, whoa. Did you say you have a 65 Caddy? He says, I need to know more. I'll just say this. I'm sure it is for sale, by the way. Wow, did we just
You can own it.
You can own it.
I can't believe you never told. I mean,
I've been keeping, because I'm actually nervous I don't want to sell it, but I'm going to sell it.
It's one of those cars. Okay, you know how like Grandpa has like 3. You're not a grandpa, but you know how Grandpa has like 2 or 3 old vehicles he might keep in the barn or whatever, and he doesn't want. But he never drives it, and he puts money into it. It's like a funnel for family funds. Ryan does not want to. He has not mentioned because he does not want to sell it, but it is for sale.
I will tell you this, this is a true story. I don't know why I'm telling this on the show, because now I'm going to make the problem even worse. But there's a sign up in the back window. It's a 65 DeVille. It's like got 97,000 original miles. It's
got the dice and everything.
It's called whipped cream. That's its name. Cream colored exterior, maroon interior, in impeccable condition for the most part. For a 65, it's in amazing shape. And so I have a sign in the back that says for sale, 65 Cadillac, and it has my phone number. And you know what I've been doing so far? Screening the calls. I'm sending them to voicemail.
I'm surprised you even. It's like when you ask a girl that doesn't want to date you for their number. I thought you just put a fake number.
No,
I
should just put a fake number. And Carrie's like, "How's the caddy sale going?" I'm like, but like literally didn't drive it one time last summer, and it deserves better.
It's a beautiful vehicle.
A car like that needs to be driven. So anyway, I guess we're abusing Real Talk to sell my personal vehicles now.
But what a selfless thing for you to be like, this car is gorgeous. It needs to be driven by it needs to be, maybe someone younger or whatever, just someone who older, maybe retired, but someone who enjoys it. And also to know that like it's just sitting there. You know what I mean? It's
just sitting there. And I'll show you, I should find another picture of it. Like there's so many. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen the car before. It's a cool car, but like, we have, I don't know, one of the experiences in driving that car is you'll find like 85-year-olds, like 75-year-olds, when they're crossing the street and they see it or you're driving by, their face lights up. And then Here's another shot of it. You can see its ass end. Is that not like the most beautiful car you've ever? The lines on that car, the tail lights are just unreal, and it rides like a dream. Imagine driving a Chesterfield down the highway with a big V8. It's
Look
like
at that trunk space.
Yeah, it's a.
That's why the mafia enjoys.
It's a
these
7.2 liter V8. Like it. I won't say it flies. It's not a sports car at all, obviously. But when you're on the highway and you go to pass someone and you hammer it, it flies. Like this car is just amazing. And so, yeah, no, it's been like a special experience.
TalkAtRyanJesperson.com.
Serious offers only. No test pilots. Everything you got to say.
Now
there.
I screwed you because you're screening your calls. Now your email box.
Now my email inbox is going to be full.
Interested in Cadillac.
Well, but in all seriousness, like what I was saying with the seniors, like they'll cross and look at it, and then you'll get like an 18-year-old that is like, and then like people are always like Snoop, and like people, everyone think like, so it's like no matter what age you are, you're going to love it. Anyway, I'm not trying to sell my car.
It's beautiful.
I mean, I'm supposed to sell my car, but I'm not trying to sell it.
I don't know how we got from downtown diverse culture.
I don't know how we started talking about
one
this.
last thing. I know we're going, but one last thing I wanted to say. So TikTok is losing popularity, as Ziyah said.
Really?
Yeah. It's
Ziyah,
it's fractured. Ziyah, sorry. I always call her Ziyah, too, in person. That's why she looks at me the funny. I see her at the games. I'm just call her Z. Anyways, yeah, it's fracturing. So, but YouTube is taking some of them. You know, kids are all up on YouTube right now.
Yeah.
Instagram is still doing good, but kids are going to these weird places. And we talked about this week that I wanted to mention it, but we went out early. Underage kids on the internet and what they're looking at. So under 16, we're finding that kids, so 3, 4, and 5 now, on a list of what kids are using is YouTube, Instagram. There's a fracture with TikTok in third, but it's cut between Reddit, Discord, and Pinterest. And people would think, why are kids on Pinterest? But it's because younger kids who can't get social media accounts, either because they're underage or they know their parents are watching, they're actually, this is kind of, maybe parents want to watch this. They're going to comment sections or under posts on Pinterest and places like that and kind of having conversations in there with their friends, kind of out of the purview of their eye. I actually have a friend who has kids who said they caught their kid doing this and they were like, why is my kid on Pinterest? Like, I build vision boards on there and stuff for like houses I want and stuff. And then I looked it up today. I just Googled it and it is happening. So that's kind of a weird fracture where like TikTok, is being fractured by Discord, Pinterest, and what was the other one I said?
Reddit.
Reddit. So also Reddit, a place where like you kind of can have a shadow account. I don't think your parents would necessarily think you're on Reddit, but Reddit is another place where you can have big conversations with friends out of the purview. So I don't know, maybe parents watch for that, but TikTok's still cool, not as cool. The main reason kids are saying, I looked this up, too many ads.
Too many ads.
Yeah, but it's still popular, but it's fracturing with those other things. But they're making tons of bank from ads, right?
Huh. Interesting conversation with Mo Amir yesterday, hosted This Is Van Color on Check out of Vancouver, about BC. BC's looking, they'd like to see Canada basically make the move that Australia made for a ban on social media for kids under 16. Yeah. We got all the time in the world for that. Remember Dr. Caroline Bazanko joined us, child psychologist. That was a conversation presented by Athabasca University. You can check it within our last month, I think, within the last 6 weeks anyway, on the show. Great insights as well with kids and tech and screen time and that kind of stuff.
And I'll just say quickly, again, we're leaving, but I like a ban's not going to work. Even trying to monitor your kid's screen time isn't going to work. I think the best thing, and I'm not a parent, but I know this is true, you got to be honest with your kids. Talk to them about the perils of the internet. Tell them, what's real and what's not, especially when it comes to porn. Like, porn isn't reality, that kind of thing. Because what I just said, kids are going to find an avenue around. They're going to be at a friend's house who has access to the internet or an iPad or a phone before they're allowed to have a phone. They're going to make avenues to go on Reddit, Pinterest, Discord instead of Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, because they know their parents are looking for that. And you just got to talk to your kids and be open enough with them that they talk to you about things.
Yeah.
Because bans aren't going to work. You tell a kid not to do something, they're going to do it.
100%. Steph's wondering how much it costs to fill up whipped cream. Wow.
Do you want to reveal?
A lot. And I would also say that with that, so it's a like I said, it's a big V8 motor. And so there's two things that happen. Like with the gauges, it's like when you hit it and the speedometer goes this way, the fuel goes this way.
In real time?
I mean, like, not actually, but pretty much. Like, I would say it's about three-quarters of a tank to get to Calgary. So put it that way. But I've driven it to Vancouver. I've driven it to Kelowna. That car's gone on a bunch of, anyway, whatever. The car is not for sale. I've decided the car is not for sale.
First on the Flamethrower, it's me. You can't have my Cadillac.
Stop sending me emails about whipped cream. Stop sending me emails. The car is not for sale. Let me just check my mail here to see if anybody has already inquired about the car. No, nobody yet. Okay, that's good. John, every week we wrap up our Friday episode, courtesy of our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, with your hottest takes, Real Talkers. That's right, these are all real emails to talk@ryanjesperson.com. It's the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. And Queen Bee leads us off. She says, Jespo, I'm writing this because I'm struggling to share your unbridled enthusiasm for the legislation the UCP just passed to advocate for the local whiskey industry. We watched Minister Dale Nally sit in your studio a week ago and shamelessly crow about his personal passion project, the Alberta Whisky Act. And then on her radio show, the next day, the Premier stated that she has now asked Nally, who apparently comes from the grocery industry, to meet with food store owners to talk about ways to address unprecedented food inflation. Great idea. I guess your minister needed a bit of a nudge to make it appear like his passion project is actually for the well-being of all Albertans, not just the tiny segment who appreciates this high-end product. Am I the only one sickened by the staggering disconnect and the tone deafness on display by the minister? This government had the time, the resources, and the AI innovation to perfectly regulate the mash bill of a $60 bottle of rye, but when it comes to the skyrocketing cost of a bag of flour or a jug of milk, they're still at the maybe let's set up a lunch meeting with our grocery oligarch buddies stage. To every Albertan choosing between a utility bill and a grocery bill, this is our let them eat cake moment. Only in Danielle Smith's Alberta do we get world-class protection for luxury liquor products before we get a finger lifted for the affordability of our basic grocery staples. Minister should not be setting up meetings to look into lowering our prices. He should be explaining why a branding exercise for distillers has taken priority over ensuring food security for Alberta families. So let me raise my glass of 100% Alberta water and say cheers to the UCP's unbelievably out of touch and unserious priorities. That from Queen Bee. I see it a little bit differently, but this is your stage, not mine. So we can talk more about that later, and I love your engagement. Thank you very much. This one from Laura, who says, Jespo, time please for another shout out to Corb Lund's Water Not Coal Drive. Oilers fans are stepping up to sign the petition as they walk into Rogers Place for playoff games, but we need more of you. She says, I loved that great Alberta whiskey, craft beer, Foothills beef, and all the grown in Alberta produce in our local grocery stores. Heading out fishing, camping, hunting in May. None of that happens without clean water from our Rockies. Call out the frickin' morons who want to give it away to a fat Australian billionaire. Grow a frickin' pair already and stand up for Alberta. Sign up for freedom from the grifters. That from Laura. What about this one from Robert, who says, when it comes to separatists, Ryan, and your sensitivity around what they would prefer you refer to them as, I don't think we should be insulting, but I do think we should treat them with the same energy that they treat everybody else with, which oddly enough, they consider to be quite insulting. I speak about them the way they talk about immigrants. They get the respect that they treat teachers and librarians with. The tone I use is the same tone that they use when talking about us, urban elitist snobs who don't get real Albertans. If they consider this insulting, then perhaps the onus is on them not to act like a pack of entitled, and then Robert, I will not say the next word, who think that this is all just a game. Robert looking for me to drop the C-bomb on Real Talk. I'm not sure we're there yet, Robert. I'm not sure how the DQs of Northwest Edmonton. Anyway, I digress. Back to the script. This from Bobby, who says, Pierre Poilievre at the UFC. Was it a good move? Was it a bad move? UFC Winnipeg. He likes to hang out where he has a friendly venue. Same with Joe Rogan, right? Dudes who give him no pushback, no criticism, with the illusion of a tough guy fighter. If he wants to prove he's a man, he needs to appear on Real Talk. Otherwise, he's a little punk. Doesn't he represent a riding in Alberta? Doesn't he have the responsibility or the balls to face the people? If he has time to run for Prime Minister forever, then he has time to appear on Real Talk. That from Bobby. Thanks, Bobby. We're taking a different tone in advocating for the interview. This one from Kim B, who says,
You guys don't seem to be bothered by this, Jespo, Johnny, but I'm super annoyed with the sudden and arbitrary announcement by the Premier about staying with daylight saving time. So much for referendum results, right? Or has the time limit ran out on the 2021 referendum? If so, take it back to the people and have 3 options on the ballot this time. If we'll be asked a minimum of 9 questions in October, why not 3 on this subject? Kim says, I'm not opposed to staying with one time, not changing our clocks, but I voted to stay status quo in 2021 because I preferred to stay on standard time, not on daylight saving time. She says it fits our body's rhythms better. The move here, a lesson from a Russian experiment more than a decade ago, affected people's mental health, created more accidents. It only lasted a year before the majority of people wanted to go back to standard time, and they did. That from Kim B. And what about this one from Mariah, who writes in and says, Jespo, after your rant on the patio tax, I had to go for a run to cool off. Says, I love Edmonton. I grew up in a family that's owned many small businesses. I'm a trained urban planner. I've spent my career working in housing, volunteering on the Transit Advisory Board, and with my community league, and supporting my family's various businesses for 25 years. I, like so many who listen to Real Talk, care deeply about this city, this province, and what it can be, and that is why I am genuinely heartbroken and ticked off that at a time when we're trying to make downtown safer, support for small businesses that are still recovering from the pandemic and this crazy Trumponian time looking to foster vibrant spaces, this patio tax was not only considered but approved. From professional training and lived experience, we know that most people, more people in public spaces, increases perceived and actual safety. Mariah is 100% correct. She says lively streets attract further investment, they strengthen local economies, and they support the very goals outlined in Edmonton's municipal city plan. Patios bring people out. The patios create energy that we desperately need right now. They make spaces feel safer, not just statistically, but emotionally. And small businesses, they rely on patios, especially in a city with a short summer season. Those few months matter. That revenue matters. It can literally make or break their entire year, and their investment and risk that they take on for our city matters, and we need to honor that. She says this decision feels fundamentally misaligned with the city plan. If we're serious about building strong nodes and corridors, she says, sorry for the nerdy planning term, supporting local businesses and improving safety, we should be reducing barriers, not adding new ones. She says from a technical urban planning stance and an economic stance, and from somebody who loves a cool mojito on a patio in the summer, this makes no sense. Council needs to find a way to make it right this patio season, and let's go Oilers! That from Mariah, who brings us home in another edition of the Flamethrower, proudly presented by the DQs in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. When you pop in to pick up a Flamethrower signature stack burger and a, let's say, score blizzard, you tell them that Real Talk sent you. We love you, Real Talkers. I hope to see you out at the Alzheimer's Pro-Am. Go Oilers! Let's take them down in Anaheim, and we'll see you on Monday with Supriya Devetti.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton.